Hello and welcome to Biz Daily. I'm Jon Jordan. So today we're talking not so much about kind of a news story as more kind of a thought-provoking kind of trends piece, I guess. So now we're a week on from the sad news that Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata, surprisingly to our people, died. So people had known he'd been ill for a while, so he cancelled his E3 appointment, and people at Nintendo had been kind of clear that he was having kind of surgery. But I think the shock came, one, because he was relatively young, 55, and two, I don't think people really realised the severity of his problems. And that's a difficult thing for kind of companies to kind of get across to the public. I guess we've seen that with Apple and Steve Jobs. So there's a kind of a privacy issue, obviously, for the individual concerned, which is difficult to kind of handle when they're in a high-profile role in a company that lots of people kind of care about. And I guess that's kind of partly where the shock came about last week. That it was just sudden. It was people were not expecting that to happen so quickly. But I guess there's been lots of talk about kind of his legacy and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to really kind of dwell on that. But I guess it's kind of interesting to look at kind of where Nintendo finds itself now. So I mean, in stark financial terms, which is not always the best way to look at things, but certainly one way to look at things. So Mr. Iwata took over as CEO of Nintendo in 2002. And if you compare the share price of Nintendo, obviously a lot of things have gone on in the global economy since then, but the share price hasn't really moved. It's gone. It went massively up, and then obviously the kind of financial crisis happened. It went massively down. So you could argue some things outside Nintendo's control. But in that kind of broad scheme of things, Nintendo is kind of finds itself, or shareholders at least in Nintendo find themselves kind of back where they were. They get a dividend now, I suppose, but the share price hasn't moved up a lot. In terms of Nintendo over that period of time, obviously some massive successes, and certainly something, things that Iwata were involved with. So the DS and the Wii, both groundbreaking hardware, opened up gaming to a much wider audience, and could almost be seen as kind of precursors to when mobile gaming would take gaming, as in everyone now is a gamer. I mean, certainly with the Wii, that was something where people who didn't think they were gamers suddenly were kind of bowling or playing tennis or all that kind of stuff. Obviously, kind of on continuing on in Nintendo's kind of hierarchy, 3DS. I mean, not unsuccessful, but the 3D part of that probably didn't need to be there, and the Wii U definitely unsuccessful. And so, kind of, we find ourselves with Nintendo in kind of a bit of a kind of crossroads, really. They're clearly financially not in a great place. They're not profitable. The sales have been declining from the high points of kind of Wii and DS. And obviously they've announced, after a long kind of period of thinking from Iwata himself, about mobile games. So the weird thing is, he himself was actually quite into kind of seemed like quite into mobile games. He's been a big kind of Apple fan. So he was a very early user of the iPhone. So it's not really clear that Nintendo's kind of aversion to mobile gaming came from him personally, or was kind of a board decision, or it's very hard with Japanese companies, as they tend to be very conservative in their nature, and that often is kind of represented on the board level. So unlike kind of American CEOs who are kind of swashbuckling, like, you do what I say kind of stuff, Japanese companies are very much more consensus, and the CEO, while being a figurehead, doesn't necessarily have particularly kind of any more power, or maybe even has less power because he's the figurehead. So it's not really clear why Nintendo has taken so long to get into mobile gaming, and we have to remind ourselves it's not actually mobile gaming yet. So it's announced its partnership with with DNA. That's Freudian, isn't it? It's announced it's going to do 5 games with DNA, but none of them are out yet, and there's not really any detail about what those games will be. So it's very hard to judge whether that kind of process will be successful, and whether they're just maybe too late in the market. And I guess when we look at now a Nintendo that doesn't have a CEO, and obviously there's the issue of who will take over, and I think we all kind of know that I guess the public favourite kind of won't take over. There's there's when you're kind of running a company, then you have to be kind of a corporate kind of level. So kind of game design is. And I guess kind of Miyamoto is the one who everyone kind of wants to be CEO, and people have actually suggested that he might be. One, he's kind of semi-retired, and two, he's obviously a very creative guy, but not probably wanting to be running a board and probably not very, not necessarily not good at numbers, but not a corporate kind of number head. So we'll probably see an internal kind of appointment, I guess, from someone maybe we don't know. But I guess there is an opportunity for Nintendo to, because it is making a radical step. It's got this new hardware, it's got the NX hardware, which again we don't really know very much about. That seems like going to be much more open platform, kind of be a gaming platform that can go on lots of different hardware, or lots of different hardware can access it in different ways. So perhaps there is an opportunity for Nintendo to shake things up a bit, and maybe have an outsider. Doesn't necessarily need to be a kind of a Western CEO, but potentially just could be an outsider to the company. But it seems like the vision, at least as articulated to us, the kind of public outside Nintendo, very much came from kind of Iwata. So I guess there's another opportunity is if someone else comes in, does that vision kind of remain the same? So I guess it's from a Nintendo point of view, I'm sure they would have been much happier if there wasn't this kind of uncertainty at the top. Whether it is actually uncertainty, or it's just kind of us kind of journalistic license to say there is kind of uncertainty. But I think it's definitely the case that there is an opportunity. There's an opportunity for Nintendo to kind of appoint someone new who will kind of maybe be a bit more enthusiastic towards mobile games, or a bit more maybe flexible in their approaches. It's not really clear what Nintendo's approach will be. I mean, Iwata didn't like the term free to play. He liked the slightly clumsy play, free to start. I'm not sure that would encourage people to play games more, and seemed very much more he was keener on paid games anyway, really. I think there's an opportunity there for someone to come in and maybe be a bit more enthusiastic, but equally, there's a potential weakness there. There's a potential, hunkering down. There's a potential to be more conservative in their business, which is probably looking at how competitors are not the only competitors, but how kind of Sony, the Japanese company, obviously been a lot more kind of westernised, I guess, than Nintendo over the years. How that's looking to just expand, and it's not particularly been mobile. Sony's experience in mobile has not been particularly successful, but at least it's had a go, and now it's kind of got VR with Morpheus, and the PlayStation 4 is a big success. And Microsoft, again, I mean, we're not quite sure how core games are going to be to their long-term vision, but they're kind of and equally mobile has been a bit of a disaster for Microsoft in terms of where Nokia have gone. But in terms of looking for the future, it's got kind of the AR thing, it's got the HoloLens, whether that'll be an actual success or whether it's more a technology demonstrator. But Microsoft has kind of been reinvigorated under its new CEO. So I think there is an opportunity and a threat for Nintendo really to find its way in a world that's kind of rapidly fragmenting in terms of gaming and platforms, and that's kind of been the soft spot for Nintendo. That's always what it did. So we'll wait and see what happens there, but we kind of wish them the best, and we certainly enjoy everyone's hoping that the first Nintendo announced mobile game will be a big one. So I guess we'll wait and see later on in the year how that all pans out. Anyway, come back tomorrow and we'll see what more news or trends we can talk about. See you then.